Yes, sir, yes, sir. What's good? What's poppin'? What's the word, family? You already know what time it is, man. It's your boy Jay Nastiii checking in. Welcome to another episode of the infamous Nastiii Knowledge Podcast, man. We're here. We're focused on creating dialogue centered around the upkeep of your mental well-being while simultaneously highlighting local talent, entrepreneurs, bosses, just anybody with anything that they, extracurricular going on outside of just their normal day-to-day. This is the podcast for you. This is the place for you. You know what I'm saying? We just love highlighting people that got something going on outside of the regular. So, welcome. First things first, happy Women's History Month. Major thing that I think goes overlooked in our society. I know, just kind of speaking for myself as a man, just from a man's perspective, rather, I wouldn't be where I am without women. Putting those seeds, not only of, positive things, but the negative things that I learned from women too, the things that I got myself into that wasn't necessarily productive for myself. I feel like those situations also help sprout and give me meaning towards certain things. So I'm appreciative of women in general. I know it's that one little saying, I can't even think of how it goes. It's like you can't live with them, but you can't live without them, or something like that. It's definitely the other way around, I feel like, because in a general sense, like, as much of a headache as a woman has been or could be in your life, they provide so much light, bro, as long as you pay the electricity bill, if you feel what I'm saying. So, happy Women's History Month. Second thing on my list that I kind of wanted to talk about is it is the first episode of season 3, man. We back. Feels good to be back. I've kind of been working on this episode since before the last episode I dropped, but I had so much life happen in between the last episode and obviously this episode that I'm dropping now. Took a couple losses in the family, obviously. I try not to document, the negativity that goes on so much, just because I just be in the mindset that everybody got something going on. You know what I'm saying? So when I do post something, I guess, quote unquote, negative that has happened or is going on, it'd be more so just to shine a light, to be like, yeah, this might be why I might be not as active on social media, or not necessarily hitting you back on your phone, texting you back, or whatever the case may be. It's more so just because I got real life going on and I'm trying to, cope and deal with things along the way. So, yeah. And secondly, I just kind of felt like I was losing my purpose with not losing my purpose with the podcast, but I just felt like I was losing a little bit of the drive that I had for it, that I had in the first season. Like, the first season, I had so many ideas just flowing. I was just basically going off of just the strength of the connections that I did have. And then for the second season, I kind of wanted to make it seem like I was running it, rather, a little bit more like business. Like, obviously, the more engagement, the more listeners that you get, the more you need to expand. So it forced me into a role of trying to think of the podcast more as like a business rather than just like a passion project. You feel what I'm saying? So I wanted to take some time off, obviously, grieve the losses that I had in my family. And then secondly, just refine my purpose. I feel like, in terms of why I was doing the podcast, like, I do this because I like doing it. I don't do it for money. I don't necessarily do it for money, rather. Let me say that. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I really enjoy talking to other people, chopping it up about how and why they are the way they are, the way that they move, the way that they think, how they got their business going, whatever the case may be. I've gotten to the point now where I like to talk, where I like to interact with people. Like-minded, not like-minded, I'm just at that point. So I feel like I just had to restructure my approach to how I thought about, like, the podcast in general and how I should go about promoting myself and just moving forward with it this season. And I feel like I'm back. Like, I feel like I'm in a comfortable space in terms of, okay, yeah, it is becoming more like a business, and yeah, I can still find a lot of enjoyment out of this. Because for me, at the end of the day, like, this podcast, when it's all said and done and I'm done doing it just in general, it's going to serve as like a little time capsule for me, at least, because I mean, just at the point of recording this, I'm 43 episodes in. I done had maybe 15 guests or so, 10, 15 guests or so. And what I'll remember about that point in my life is what I put on wax, you know what I'm saying, what I recorded, and the memories and the interaction that I got to have with those people just in general. So I feel like I'm back, man. I feel like I'm back. But yeah, man, now that I done got all that out the way, we gonna jump right into the episode, man. No questions that need answers on this episode, but I will post some at the conclusion of this episode. So make sure y'all stay tuned for those. If you're not following us on our social medias, man, you gotta get tapped in. It's the only way you can know how and what and when we gonna be dropping a little something, or you get extra footage and stuff like that. So make sure you stay tapped in with us on social media. You can follow us over on Instagram at _Nastiii Knowledge Podcast, and that is nasty with 3 I's. You can follow us over on Twitter at _NK Podcast 2. Over on Facebook, type in the Nastiii Knowledge Podcast. Remember to add those 3 I's in nasty, and YouTube, Josh Wiliams, search the Nastiii Knowledge Podcast. Yeah, we're gonna have all that in the episode's notes, so don't fret, don't worry. Trying to think what else we got going on the episode today. No questions that need answers. Obviously want to talk about what's going on in the world. Gotta invite somebody to the front of the congregation. I've just been tweaking a little bit, but you know, it's only right to hold our brothers accountable when it comes to, you know, being in the media and just moving crazy. So we're gonna invite bro to the front. Also got a decent topic that I want to talk about. I feel like it's gonna tie into just the way a lot of us think and move in general on the daily. So looking forward to that topic. And lastly, I'm trying to think I got any more housekeeping notes, man. Bear with me, man. I ain't picked up a mic in 2 months. Y'all gotta, you gotta rock with me. You gotta rock with me. I'm doing it strictly off the strength right now. But in terms of the rest of the episode, yeah, I think that's it. We're gonna jump right into it, man. All right, man. All right. First things first, we gotta start off with mentioning today's featured artist. So today a little bit different. Got 2 featured artists. The song at the top of the episode is called Back to Back, and it is by Gifts and my dog High Boy Mills. Shout out High Boy Mills, man. We done had his music back, I think it was in the 1st season now. So shout out High Boy Mills. Shout out to both Gifts and High Boy Mills though, man. And I think in the last couple of months they both put out tapes from their individual perspectives, not together. But I like more so when they collab, just because of the energy that they bring. They kind of feed off each other, and it's a different, like, Indiana sound. You know what I'm saying? Like, at first, when I first started listening to a lot of artists from Indy, they all kind of resembled each other in the fact that they kind of, I don't want to say sounded similar, but they all kind of had this, it's like diction to a lot of the things that they said, and it would kind of put the music in the same box to me, as well as some of the same beats. I did hear a lot of the same beats when I first started listening to a couple guys, but then I branched out a little bit, obviously, with people that I've had on, people that I mention on the podcast all the time. But these 2 just in particular, both, they're not from Indy, they from Fort Wayne, if I'm not mistaken, but their sound is so different than the typical just, yeah, I'm from Indiana, bro, I rap. This is what my shit sound. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so different that I definitely wanted to include a song that they had together on the podcast. So I'm going to include their information in today's show's notes, so y'all can get linked in with both their movements. At some point, I want to have both of them on here, man, just because I know just in general, in general, Hot Boy Mills, man, he has a very interesting story. He comes from a very interesting background. And I know he's been locked in with Gifts for a long time, so I'm interested to see just kind of how they play off of each other, man. But anyways, lock in with Hot Boy Mills and Gifts. I'm going to have the information in today's show's notes. Without further ado, let's keep moving. All right, man, so keeping the episode moving right along, it's time to hop into one of my favorite segments. It's time to put you on. Put you on. So Pete, man, today I got a podcast I want to put y'all on to. And what makes it so much sweeter for me is that it's ran by, it's hosted by one of my friends from college, Hermone. She goes by the pseudonym The Red Sea Hippy. And her podcast is called The Quarter Life Crisis. Dope, super dope self-improvement podcast, man. Episodes aren't too long either. That's what, she gets straight to the point. That's what I like about it too. But so far, like I said, she's put out 3 episodes. And I think my favorite one so far is episode 2. And it was about consistency. I kind of touched on consistency a little bit on here, but I feel like she expands more on hers. And without going too much into what the actual episode was about, it's just what I like most about her podcast is that it's from a woman's perspective, but it's not necessarily all about one way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? She provides a lot of different, what's the word I'm looking for? She just provides a different way of looking at stuff. And her aspect that she comes from is very interesting to me. So that's why I take in the information she puts out on there. And, you know what I'm saying? Just a different type of light, you know what I'm saying? And, I champion, female podcasts in general. The Truman Room podcast, also indie-based. One of my favorite podcasts. And I don't know. It's just great seeing women in podcasting, because I feel like as podcasts got more introduced into the main eye, at first it was at the helm of podcasts that were dominated by males more so than women being at the forefront. So it's a double plus. So shout out Hermone, man. Loving what you're doing. It'd be dope if we could have you on here one day. You know what I'm saying? Just chop it up a little bit about your brand, my brand. So yeah. And make sure y'all tap into the Quarter Life Crisis, man. I'm gonna include all of her information as well in today's show's notes, so you can get directly into it and tap in, and you won't have no excuses not to have been tapped in. You feel me? But yeah, man, without further ado, let's keep the episode moving. You already know what time it is, man, in the episode. Quickly moving from my favorite segment to probably my most dreaded segment, the segment that I hate doing the most. But I gotta do it because niggas be out here doing the most, you feel me? So on today's episode, man, I gotta invite Ja Morant to the front of the congregation. And it pains me, man, because I really like Ja Morant. In terms of just the young superstars coming up in the NBA and how much the NBA culture is reflected within our culture, I feel like Ja Morant plays that role, whether it's him being a role model, him being a trendsetter, whatever the case may be. He plays a direct role in a lot of the way a lot of the young hoopers, or just youngins in general, view basketball. And it sounds crazy, bro, because I'm not no super old man to where the point where I don't like stuff and I don't like rap and I don't like, you know what I'm saying? So it'd be weird when I be having to do stuff like this and criticize somebody younger than me, and not significantly younger. Don't do that. But somebody younger than me for wilding out. And that's essentially what y'all doing. He wilding out. You feel me? He don't necessarily got to be moving or doing a lot of the stuff he's alleged to do. But he is, and that's why we gotta kind of talk about some of his moves. So it's been reported, obviously, back when I think it was earlier in this NBA season, Ja Morant had a run-in with security personnel. I think it was at the Indiana Pacers game that they played that night, and allegedly somebody said that somebody from his vehicle rather had a red beam light that they were pointing at the bus. And then obviously this this latest incident that just happened that got him suspended from the team for a while was a little bit more kind of eye rolling, because it's like it could have been prevented. Ja young, man. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the outlets that I've been seeing report on these two situations in general kind of they kind of say it's reminiscent of when Carmelo first came in the league. And Carmelo was a little bit of like a knucklehead, and he had some problems with guns as well, quote unquote. And he was just kind of moving reckless as well. I mean, you're a millionaire, multi-millionaire. You know what I'm saying? If you don't got somebody there to necessarily tell you right from wrong, or don't kind of, I ain't even gonna say you don't got nobody there to tell you, because a lot of times people do have people there to tell them right from wrong. It's just that you get to a point where can't nobody tell you nothing, especially when you making that much money, you feel me? But I don't necessarily think that's the case with Ja. I just think Ja is, I don't know, he just kind of moving, I think, to appease or change the narrative on kind of who he is, I guess, or set the narrative on who he is. He hasn't been in the league for a long time. I want to say it's been maybe 3-4 years now. But the reputation that he's kind of came in with is kind of one that's all about the smoke, all about, hey, we can get into it. I ain't got no issues with doing that. You feel me? I'll go this way if you want to go this way. You know what I'm saying? And as a man, you don't necessarily have to, in my opinion, you don't necessarily have to portray that you're the hardest man in the room. I feel like, and this has been my experience, so if you don't agree or whatever the case may be, keep your 2 cents to yourself. Nah, I'm just playing. But just in my experience, man, I ain't never been the biggest, buffest dude in the room. Nothing like that. But I've also never treated no man in the room just with total disregard and disrespect, because at the end of the day, he a man just like I'm a man. He bleeds just like I bleed. At the end of the day, everybody can be beaten. It's just the simple fact that what do we even need to take it to a place for with our masculinity that we're constantly trying to prove that we're this? You know what I'm saying? That's what's kind of blowing me about the Ja Morant situation, because it's not like Ja Morant has shown that he's a bad guy or that he's, you know what I'm saying, like this super turned up just basketball player that's out here just living recklessly. Yeah, he lives like he's a young 20-something years old guy. But at the same time, when you got this brand and you're building these relationships with sponsors and stuff like that, you obviously have obligations that are just bigger than Ja Morant from South Carolina. You know what I'm saying? You obviously have things now that you could lose, and you have a family to feed. You have obligations that are bigger than just yourself. So I just hope moving forward, he can look back at this situation and just kind of laugh. Like, yeah, I was moving wild, but I figured it out. I got it together. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't want to be too harsh and critical on him, because we done all been 21, 22 years old. We know how we was at 21, 22 years old. So it's not something that's so drastic to the point that I just wanted to get on here and drag him. It's just more so I just wanted to kind of big bro and just be like, hey, bro, like, yeah, we don't gotta do that. You feel me? And if you really want to be around that, get some people that can do that for you. You know what I'm saying? That can move around in silence. You don't necessarily even gotta be putting your business all out there like that. You feel what I'm saying? But in this case, it's unfortunate. But I mean, the Grizzlies have been doing fine without Ja. At the time of this recording, he has returned back to the team. He hasn't played a game, but he's like been around the team actually at a game and stuff like that. So it seems like whatever counseling and stuff that he's been going to has, I guess, from from the time of this recording is positive, or he's at least working on it. So yeah, I ain't gonna give my thoughts on the whole NBA suspension stuff because NBA been kind of wilding with their discipline across all ranges. So I'm gonna just let that slide. But in the case of Ja Morant and just wilding out this NBA season, man, you gotta do better, fam. What's going on? Time for another segment. So Pete, man, let's see what's going on in the world today. Obviously, there's never a dull moment living. I feel like it's always something. Oh, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So, I seen on, I think it was Twitter, they was talking about how DatPiff was ending, like it was shutting down after, I think it was 18 years or so. And for those who know, you know what I'm saying, you grew up during a certain era of time, you know how pivotal DatPiff was to music, you feel me? Just off the strength, man, my two of my favorite mixtapes that I used to listen to on DatPiff were Sorry for the Wait, the first one by Lil Wayne, and then South Memphis Kingpin by Dolph. R.I.P. Dolph, man. R.I.P. Dolph. But those are my two favorite mixtapes to listen to on DatPiff. But it turned out to be a hoax because DatPiff ended up writing on from their account on Twitter that they were just working out some technical issues that they were having with the site as a whole. So apparently, if you had the actual apps on your phone, then for Android it just like wouldn't open up, and then for iPhone I don't think it was even like available for a little bit. But it's just kind of weird how music has shifted so much. Music distribution rather has shifted so much, because back in the day, you know what I'm saying, I would just go get on my laptop, go to DatPiff, or go to, I couldn't tell you my other sites, and literally just download music from whatever site that was and onto my computer, and that would just be that. Now it's more so just like you gotta have a music-based subscription to get a lot of your music or access to a lot of music, unless you want to get like on YouTube or something like that. But I don't just sit on YouTube and listen to music all day unless I just got it like playing in the background when I'm cleaning or recording. You know what I'm saying? So it's just weird. But in terms of just like DatPiff in general, I feel like sites like DatPiff, sites like LimeWire, stuff that a lot of kids gotta Google today, you feel me, were pivotal in how we listen to music and how this just new music game goes, how it's distributed. So shout out DatPiff for, I guess, at least still kicking. It's one of those things from my childhood, at least, that's still seem to be hanging around. So that's dope to see, man. Hella dope to see. Yeah, this one story I seen was wild. So apparently a man was crushed to death while he was trying to steal a catalytic converter from a chop shop in Georgia. Wild. And this is the thing with just like taking car parts and just breaking in cars and stuff like that in general, bro. Like there is a risk factor to that, and it's not necessarily getting caught by the person that owned the car. More so than you don't necessarily know what's going to happen with the vehicle that you're trying to get into. You know what I'm saying? Like I read this one story a couple weeks back about a man bleeding out because he broke into a car in, I think it was Idaho, maybe one of them I states. And he broke into a car, but he punched the glass, like wrapped his hand, punched the glass, broke it, and ended up bleeding out because he like cut one of the veins like on his wrist or under his wrist or something like that, and just bled out. You know what I'm saying? Trying to steal out of a car. So it's just like, I don't know, bro. It's definitely risk factors with everything, but it's just like instant karma is a MF, bro. Especially when, like, think about the person that possibly had like their car at that. It wasn't a chop shop. It was like an auto shop where you get your car fixed. Imagine your car being broke. Obviously, I just faced it. Like, my car was just down probably like a month or so ago. I had to put it in the shop, get some major work done. Just imagine me leaving my car at a shop to get it fixed, to come back and the shop say, yeah, we fixed your problem, but somebody broke in here last night and took your catalytic converter, so you can't even start the chup if you want to. What? Like that, I think that's the wilder part, bro. Having to talk to the people after their, parts from their car are stolen, or, whatever the case may be, like you can't replace it. That's the wilder part to me, bro. But I don't know, bro. Back to that story, they'll say evidence at the scene indicates that he was obviously trying to illegally remove the part, and that the whole vehicle fell on top of him. So apparently the vehicle was like up on the ramp that you raise it up with, and then he was just trying to like take it off from from up under there, and it just collapsed. That's wild. Like, if I'm a shop owner, that's even a wild scene for me to walk back into my shop to see, like, for real. But man, I can't call it. I cannot call it. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this. So, 2 people died, and it seems like one person is in critical condition after a stampede at a Glorilla concert in New York. So apparently the stampede was caused by people thought it was shooting. And then obviously when you think of shooting, people just scatter everywhere, you know what I'm saying, trying to get out the way. Because you can't have your shit in the venues, especially in New York. New York gun laws are crazy. Like, they trying to lock you up forever. They catch you with a gun, bro. Like, it's wild out there. So apparently 2 people passed away from their injuries following the stampede. That's actually kind of sad, bro. Like, for real. Especially when I think about it, and this is like me and my girl, we didn't started going to concerts like this year, obviously. And we haven't gone to one that was like by an artist that was like super, or I guess they music like super turned up to where you feel like you even need to be, you know what I'm saying, knucking and bucking in there. But we have been to venues where it has been, elbow to elbow. So my thing is, I would be pissed if I was at a concert where we supposed to be getting turned, we supposed to be getting hyped, and niggas is wilding out to the point where they trying to run over me, dog. Nah, I ain't got time. Like, you're obviously gonna be turned up. You're gonna be in a place where you want to fight because people's pushing and bumping and all that type of stuff like that. That's probably the only thing about concerts that blows me. I ain't gonna hold you. And I like live performances. Like, an artist that I like, I want to go see them. You feel what I'm saying? Whether their music turned up, not turned up, I want to see them. So when it comes to people just doing the most at concerts, that really blows me, bro. Like, I remember I went to go see Ride Wave. I think it was it had to be 2021 or 20, I can't remember, but it was his Soulfly tour, and I went to Chicago just so I could be closer. I already knew when he came to Indiana, the seats that I wanted to have, like in the pit and stuff like that, they were already gone. So when I went to Chicago, I was like in the 3rd row. I was like, cool, like, there's, you know what I'm saying, don't get no better than this. But the thing was, this was like one of the first concerts in Chicago after COVID, like after things started opening back up. So everybody in there was already super turned up, ready to be outside. You feel what I'm saying? And for 2, a lot of Ride fans that were there were like younger. You know what I'm saying? At this time, I'm 25, 26. People in there was probably like 18, 19, 20, 21. Super T, you feel me? Like, ready. So as soon as he come out, they start just pushing stuff, and I'm like, oh man, y'all tweaking in here, bro. Like, for real. Like, I can't even fight nobody in here for real because I ain't from the city. Like, I'm just here to see Ride. But they start pushing and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's raps, bro. Or even when people try to like bum rush their way beside you, I'm talking about like standing room concerts now, not like seated. Like standing concerts, when people try to like bum rush through the crowd and try to get in front of you, stuff like that be blowing me. Like, I don't know, I just think it should be some better concert etiquette out there. Like, we all in here to see the same shit. If y'all got here late, then you just lucked out. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that should just be the moral of the story, but I don't know, man. Very sad to hear, you know what I'm saying, people still super turned up, don't really know how to move at concerts, but I feel like that's gonna go on to the end of time, you know what I'm saying? Especially the way we portray a lot of celebrities and just kind of move about them. That's just gonna keep happening. That's the unfortunate reality. But rest in paradise to those two people that lost their lives as a result of this stampede, and the third person that is in critical condition, or those that are in critical condition, man. Send some prayers up in them, because that's sad. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine going to see one of my favorite artists and then possibly not making it back home. You know what I'm saying? From having that much fun seeing them. So very, very sad. Very sad. What else I want to talk about? I think that's the last story I really want to talk about. Ain't nothing really popping with the boy though, man. I'm cooling. I'm chilling. I feel like I'm still really getting adjusted to life outside of Indiana. I love Texas though. Texas is great. Weather is a lot more unpredictable than I was originally thinking, but I like Texas. There are more sunny days than there are cloudy, and that's always great. Outside of that, man, ain't not really popping with me. I'm just trying to continue to move. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I was grieving a couple losses in the fam. So that kept me away for a while. But outside of that, man, just been trying to stay low. Appease the ones I need to appease. Love on the ones who love me. And keep that shit pushing, man. Ain't nothing really to me right now. But in terms of just this third season, while I have your ear, before we jump into the nitty gritty, I got a lot planned. I have a lot of guests that I've been in contact with having on. A lot of topics that I want to cover. I've been doing a lot of living, so it's a lot of stuff that I feel like I can go over. Yeah, man, I'm just excited that y'all to rock with me this far, honestly. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, man, what a great time to start on first episode of season 3. You feel me? You get tapped in, you get to see what we about, get to see how we are moving forward while having the opportunity to go backwards and listen to what I previously put out. So it's a dope win-win if you ask me. So next, normally we would answer the questions that need answered. We would do the questions that need answered, rather. But since this week I don't have any, I will have some on the next episode. So next solo episode. Let me say that. I will answer them on the next solo episode. And yeah. Without further ado, man, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come right back into it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back. Welcome back, man. So it's time to jump into the nitty gritty. It's time to jump into what we're here for. And that is what today's episode is kind of about, what I kind of wanted to jump into. So a little story for you. Back in, what was that, 2020 or 2021, I want to say. 2021, rather, excuse me. I'm tweaking. So back in 2021, the end of the year, I lost my granny the day after Christmas. But interestingly enough, and this is a story that I've never told anyone, really because I felt so much guilt about it, was that Christmas Day, you know, obviously you make the rounds and you call the people in your family, let them know you love them, You know what I'm saying? You chop it up with your loved ones is basically what I'm trying to get at. But this particular Christmas, I got the urge, like something just kept telling me in the back of my mind, call your grandma, call your grandma, call your grandma. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't like I was so busy to where I couldn't call her, but I just I just didn't. And what ended up happening, obviously, the next day was that she passed. Um, and she passed early in the wee mornings of the next day. So it was really what I kind of contributed as Christmas Day still. And I turned 28 a month ago now, and I was just kind of thinking about what my biggest regret was in my life, and I've had plenty. You feel what I'm saying? But that is my biggest regret so far. It's not saying, at least one last time, Merry Christmas, or at least one last time being able to talk to my granny just to kind of let her know that, hey, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Just as simple as something like I love you would have sufficed. You feel what I'm saying? So that kind of served as my motivation. That thinking kind of served as my motivation for today's episode. And obviously today's episode gonna be about regret. What's your biggest regret, man? What irks you the most about your past decisions? We're gonna chop it up about that right now, actually. So regret, man. A regret is defined as an adverse emotion focused on the belief that some event from your past could have been changed in order to produce a more desirable outcome. It is something terrible that happens in your life that you feel such feelings of just helplessness, pointlessness. You feel like if you would have done something differently in that situation, you could possibly be in a different type of state of either life or thinking at this very point that you're at now. And what makes regret so what's the word I'm looking for? What makes it such, I think, a big part of our lives today is that the daily kind of just purpose or nature of being a human is making decisions. So in the moment, we all gonna feel like the decision that we making in that moment is right, but that doesn't necessarily constitute as being the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can look back 2 years, 3 years, hell, you can look back a couple months at a decision that you make today and feel some type of way about it. That's just the reality of the situation. Regret serves as so much as, I think, just a point of emphasis, especially in mental health, because a lot of us regret some of the moves, some of the ways of life thinking, just a lot of the decision making that we done made. And I thought it was kind of interesting how much regret can be intertwined. You know what I'm saying? Within person to person, how one person's regret can look the same as another person's regret. You know what I'm saying? Like, not necessarily the exact same thing, but situationally it falls under the umbrella of the same thing. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, regret. Like, it isn't just wishing events had gone differently. It also involves an aspect of self blame and guilt, and that's, you know what I'm saying. I mentioned when I told that story about my granny, like, I felt guilty. That's why I ain't told anybody about. You know what I'm saying? Just that little voice I had in my head that day that was like, yo, call your granny, see how your granny doing, da da da. You feel me? And those feelings of guilt and just blame, I know will continue to haunt me, but it's imperative that you at least say what is haunting you, or say what you regret, or just in general say what may be irking you, so at least somebody knows, and at least it's not something that you're carrying forever. You feel what I'm saying? I think the scariest part about regret is, like, even though it deals so much with your past, or even though it's rooted in the past, like, so much of it, like, affects today, like your here and now. You know what I'm saying? It affects your thinking, the way you move now. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you obviously can't change the past, right? So, like, the feelings of disappointment and guilt and remorse that come associated as being a part of regret, they have such a big influence on how we move here and now. The problem is that when you're feeling regret over your past choices, you might miss out on a lot of the good things that are going on for yourself today. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, I remember my granny passed, and so my granny passed the last week of obviously the last week of December. And my homegirl Amber, she turned, well, I don't even know what she turned. She's a year older than me, but she had a birthday a couple days after my granny had passed, and she invited me to a birthday dinner that was a week later. And I ended up going just simply off the strength of the friendship. Like, I didn't even want to really be outside like that because I felt so guilty. Like, I felt so, I tricked myself out of this last interaction simply by not following up. You know what I'm saying? Simply by not listening to my intuition and not necessarily acting on how I felt like in my soul, in my heart of hearts, I should have acted. And I don't know, I feel like that kind of plagued me, not even for just that interaction at her birthday dinner, but for the majority of that year moving forward. Like, I just wasn't me, who I'm used to. You know what I'm saying? So regret can definitely take a toll on how you interact, how you move now, here and now. So it's important to, like I mentioned earlier, it's important to put those things or those actions that you feel like you're going through and that you feel like are causing you to not necessarily be on your P's and Q's, to let somebody know, put them down on paper. Just get it off of your shoulders so you're not the only person carrying that burden. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, regret, it can act as a source of very valuable information in a sense. The thing about it is that when you use your past choices or the way that you feel, like when you use that guilt and stuff like that, man, it can act as like a source to motivate you. You know what I'm saying? Inspire you to make better choices in the future. And that's how I kind of try to interact and use it now. Like, I ain't gonna sit here and lie to you. Like, I don't try to like harp on a lot of stuff from my past. You know what I'm saying? If it didn't happen, it didn't happen. And if I ended up burning a bridge, then the bridge is burned. The bridge is burned. You feel what I'm saying? So if I get to a point where I'm reminiscing over me burning that bridge and I'm like, dang, I wish I could have handled that a little bit better, it's just, I just dead the thought altogether. But when it comes to somebody like the story I mentioned at the beginning of this episode about my granny, somebody so close, you know, that I was so close to, that nurtured me, obviously, for the first 27 years of my life, it's hard to not think about the guilt and the shame of not being able to talk to her that final time that I got the opportunity to and then take. Like, it's tough that's a tough pill to swallow. But at the same time, when I think about it, or even when, you know, the holidays come around, which I don't like the holidays at all, simply off the strength of I mentioned it, but I've lost a couple different just like relatives during the holiday season and it just took a lot out of me. So when the holidays come around, I kind of use that time to kind of just give reverence and remembrance to them. You feel me? But what I've been doing, or what I did this past holiday season, was I tapped in with my people. Like, everybody that I thought to interact with, aunties, uncles that I hadn't talked to, you know what I'm saying? Just did something as small as texting them, letting them get my number, letting them know, like, hey, yeah, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a mistake that I don't never want to make again. You see what I'm saying? So I use the fact that I effed up with not speaking to my granny that final time to push me, to motivate me to talk to people, tap in with family members that I don't necessarily talk to all the time. Just do little things that would seem little to other people, but obviously are a big thing to me. Just try to make sure that I take that extra step so I never make that mistake again going forward. You feel what I'm saying? But not everybody thinks like that. Obviously, I feel like that way of thinking takes a little bit more self-reflection and time, that you kind of just really got to look at yourself and be honest. But, to each his own. So regret is often characterized as a bad emotion. But like I just said, man, it can serve as an important function. It can be positive. You just have to be able to spin it and turn it in that direction that it can be positive. You feel what I'm saying? It's definitely a painful experience. It's definitely a painful emotion. I ain't gonna sit here and act like you ain't gonna feel, you know what I'm saying, whatever consequence you made off that choice. But it can also help you refocus, you know what I'm saying, and take action into like moving into a different path. You know what I mean? Like, and to not make those same choices again type vibe. You know what I mean? Like, the less the opportunity one has to change a situation, the more likely it is that regret can turn into a stressor. It can turn into something that damages your mind and body. So if you're not actively trying to at least acknowledge the fact that you regret something or that you could have handled something better, and then putting that out into the universe and just relieving yourself of that stress, it can have long-term results on your health for real. And I think that's something that we don't necessarily take into much consideration when we're young. Like, right now, I'm not the most in shape that I've ever been in my life, but I go to the gym because I know the bones don't work like they used to. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I don't recover from workouts as fast now as I did even 2-3 years ago. So it's like, you got to continue to plant the little seeds for your wellness now, so that later in life you can reap the full benefits of what you're doing now. You see what I'm saying? Like, people say I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm here for both. Why I can't have my cake and eat it too? What we talking about? You feel me? But yeah, man, you gotta be able to push through. You gotta find a way to be able to turn that negative, adverse action that you felt like was going, you know what I'm saying, keep you bonded up for a long time. You gotta be able to take that regret and use it to motivate you to move in a totally different way moving forward, for real. I think a bigger conversation that we can even have about regret is that, like, the fact that obviously it's going to take a toll on us and stuff like that, but excuse me, at the same time, it takes a toll on the people that love us. You know what I'm saying? Like, as much as obviously we're going to go through, whatever emotions we have when we're going through our little seasons of, you know what I'm saying, not necessarily feeling like we made the best decisions and stuff like that. The people that love us, the people that, you know what I'm saying, rock with us the most, it can change their feelings toward us or change the way that they feel towards us too. And I think we don't talk about that enough. Like, regret can cause us from stop experiencing love and joy and pleasure in the present. Like, people who see the situation differently from us and who want us to move past it can be irritated by the way that you moving and responding to whatever you moving, you know what I'm saying, whatever you got going on. They can feel irked by the way that you responding to what you going through. Because I've said this before, every situation is different in the perspective of a different person. And I had to really learn that. Like, I learned that in one of my past relationships. Like, I would see things that she would say are major to her as minute. Like, I would minimize it. So when it got to a point where she was ultimately unhappy with the way things was moving and shaking, it made sense because, I mean, this wasn't the end all be all by any means of the relationship, but it was a major part of why things weren't, you know what I'm saying, moving and shaking the way that they should. So that's something that I realized can play a big factor in just a lot of things, especially if it's coming from a place of, you know, when it's coming from the people that value you and get to see you on the daily and stuff like that. So it's important, man. It's definitely important. If you are always thinking about what could have been done, then that ultimately will cloud your judgment and make poor decisions because you're always trying to compensate for the past. You're always trying to make up what didn't work then. And that's going to continue to just build like a bigger burden for you. You know what I'm saying? In the long run. So, like I said, man, it's best to just continue to try and push forward and flip the bad and make it a good. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's easier said than done. I ain't gonna sit here and just act like, yo, I've been doing this for all my life type vibe. But yeah, if you really put the work into it, man, it'll make you feel a lot better in the long run. And I say in the long run a lot because that's what I'm in it for. You feel what I'm saying? You can help release a lot of the feelings of just shame, guilt, just the regret of whatever you're going through by practicing self-compassion. Like, this is the only body you get. You feel what I'm saying? So you have to treat yourself with a sense of compassion. Like, you have to let yourself know, like, hey, yeah, I messed up. It's okay. I might not get this opportunity back, but at the same time, I ain't never gonna make this mistake again. You see what I'm saying? Something as simple as that. Just reminding yourself that you're human, like you're doing the best you can, and you can learn from your past decisions and continue to grow to places that you never thought you could grow. So acknowledge your thoughts and feelings because they can bring relief from those strong negative emotions. Now, here on the Nastiii Gem podcast, at the end of each episode, we like to leave you with something called the Nastiii Gem. And the Nastiii Gem basically, it's a quote, rap, any piece of literature, really, that serves as the main idea. It's kind of just like the sum up of what today's episode was about. And today's Nastiii Gem comes from one of my favorite rappers out of Memphis. So people, I'm gonna do this one day. This is a side note from what the Nastiii Gem is, but I really love, like, I'm really tapped into like Memphis rap right now. Like, I'm listening to probably like 12 people from Memphis. It's sick. And I want to do like a Memphis top, like I want to do a top 10 list of like various rappers from cities and stuff like that. Cause I'm definitely listening to a lot of Memphis rap. But this is one of my favorite rappers from Memphis. Dolph probably first. He might be second. I love him that much. But today's Nastiii Gem comes from Don Tripp. And Don Tripp said, I don't care what treasure other niggas find when they go searching through another nigga's trash. And that's what you gotta look at. Your past decisions that weren't so favorable that you look at now as. They're trash. So if you feel like you're going to find some type of closure out of rehashing the past and still trying to, you know, get your lick back for whatever decision that you made then that you don't necessarily like now, it's not gonna happen.